This is a meditation to help you practice mindfulness and observation skills by noticing your thoughts. To begin with, get yourself in a comfortable position, either lying down or sitting. You want to make sure you're in a quiet place where you're unlikely to be interrupted. First, settling in your body, letting your shoulders drop and your eyes to close. Feeling the weight of your body on the surface where you're laying or you're sitting. Bringing your awareness to your breath, letting your breath find its natural rhythm. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. So we all have a part of us that is curious and non-judgmental. To help you tap into that part of you that's curious and non-judgmental, remember what you were like as a small child. So curious of the world, so adventurous and eager to learn, exploring your surroundings, gaining knowledge and experience, having this sense of genuine curiosity. See if you can access that same curiosity and non-judgmental attitude that you had when you were a small child. First, have you simply notice the position of your body, noticing your arms and where they are, noticing your legs, noticing your hands in relation to the space in your environment. What are your feet touching? What do those feel like? Noticing the weight of the surface that you're sitting on or lying on. Noticing the weight of your eyelids as your eyelids remain closed for this exercise. Tap into your hearing self. Do you notice any sounds in your environment? Now notice if you can smell or taste anything in your nose, in your mouth. Noticing the sensation of your breathing, the natural rhythm of your breath, the expansion and the softening of your belly as you breathe in and as you breathe out. Letting your chest rise and fall. Noticing what your breath feels like with each inhalation and exhalation as your lungs fill in with air, as your lungs expel the air from your body. So there's a part of you that can really notice everything. All of us have this noticing self, this non-judgmental noticing self. You can notice your environment. You can notice what it feels like to use your 5 senses. You can notice what you hear. You can notice what you taste, what you touch, what you think, what you feel in each moment. We call the self our noticing self. This part of us that can notice everything. Or if it feels right for you, you can call this your observing self. We all have this noticing or observing self, and the ability to access this self in any moment, at any time. But during this meditation today, we're going to call this self our noticing self. And what we're going to have you do is we're going to have your noticing self distance itself, taking a step back and watching your thoughts. Taking a step back, watching your thoughts without any judgment, treating those thoughts gently and kindly, listening to those thoughts, but not acting on those thoughts, or placing too much weight on those thoughts. Simply allowing your thoughts to come and to go as they do naturally. You see, thoughts are kind of like clouds in the sky. Just as the clouds in the sky pass freely by, our thoughts come and go. And what this means is that we don't necessarily need to get caught up in these thoughts or hooked by these thoughts. We can just let these thoughts move freely, just as the clouds move freely in the sky. So what I'd like you to do next is to gently bring your awareness to your thoughts. Notice as each thought arises and appears in your mind, what that thought is, listening and acknowledging that thought, but allowing it to pass freely by, just like the clouds, without attempting to get hooked or caught up by that thought. You might find yourself thinking similar thoughts or the same thought over and over, or there might be a little bit of space between different thoughts. That's okay. You're just allowing yourself to see these thoughts, to imagine these thoughts, to hear these thoughts, and allowing them to be and to float freely by, just like the clouds in the sky, without trying to control or get hooked by these thoughts. If your mind is silent at times, that's okay. Sometimes thoughts have a slower pace, or you might find that there's a lot of chatter in your head. That's okay too. The mind speaks to us at different paces and at different times. That's natural, that's normal. We all have our own pace and our own timing and our own types of thoughts. And as your thoughts appear, see if you can sense what they sound like. See if you can hear those thoughts like a voice in your head or as spoken words. Taking notice what kind of emotion you have behind those thoughts. Taking notice what those thoughts sound like. Maybe they sound like you and are in your voice. Maybe they sound like they're the voice of somebody else. Again, just simply observing and noticing these thoughts allowing your noticing self to do what it's good at doing, which is simply noticing. Taking note of the pronunciation of the words and what those words sound like. Seeing if you have maybe competing thoughts. So you might have a thought like, I'm not doing this right. But following that thought, you might have a thought, I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to do. There's no wrong way for me to do this exercise. I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing in this moment. Now notice if that voice that you're hearing, those thoughts, if you can place them in a location in your head. Maybe you sense them in the front of your head, or maybe they sound like they're coming from the middle of your head, or the back of your head. Or maybe there's a reverberation throughout your entire head. You're just taking note of where these thoughts are coming from, as if you were noticing the sound of a radio. Where is that sound coming from? What does that radio in your head sound like? And just as you can do with the volume of a radio, you may have the ability to turn the sound of these thoughts up or turn the sound of these thoughts down, adjusting the pitch and the volume, noticing the pronunciation. But at the same time, you're just letting those thoughts be. You're not attempting to push them away. You're not allowing yourself to get absorbed in their pace. You're just allowing those thoughts to be, being non-judgmental of those thoughts, letting them pass by just as the clouds pass by in the sky. So you notice with the weather, there are some days that you see the clouds pass by at a quicker pace in the sky. There are some days where you see less clouds in the sky or more clouds in the sky. That's part of nature, and our thoughts are similar to nature, in which there may be some days where you have a lot of thoughts. Or there may be other days where your mind is a little bit more quiet and you have less thoughts. Being accepting of this experience, that's just a natural part of the human experience. Thoughts come and go, and they have a tendency to come and go at different paces and at different volumes, and maybe on some days they might have a different pitch or sound or emotional experience behind those thoughts. You, as your observing and noticing self, aren't attempting to change those thoughts. You're just allowing them to be and watching them from a distance. Take note of the emotions of these thoughts as your mind speaks to you. Notice that your mind is really a storyteller or a commentator. It's always saying things to you, might be presenting images or words. Might have times where the story is told at a slower pace or a faster pace. Or maybe a story is told differently at different times. Your mind is always speaking to you in different ways, with different words. Maybe sometimes it has similar words or the same words or thoughts that come and go in your mind. Just keep allowing yourself to notice these words and remain curious about these words. Remaining at a respectful distance, as the curious self and the observing self often does naturally. Allowing these thoughts to appear and then disappear. Allowing them to come and go, just like the clouds come and go in the sky. Maybe there's one thought that seems to move a little bit more slowly in your mind, where it keeps coming back to you. That's okay. Again, we're not trying to place judgment on these thoughts. We're practicing basic mindfulness and allowing yourself to be curious and noticing and accepting of what it is that's there and what it is that our mind has to tell us in each moment. Maybe by now, you've even found yourself losing track of this exercise, where it feels like you're having a hard time paying attention, or your mind is wandering. The truth is, all minds wander. Just simply notice that all minds wander, that you too might have times during this exercise that your mind is wandering, gently bringing your attention back to observing your thoughts, noticing the sound, noticing the intonation, noticing their pace, noticing the position in your head and where you feel like that sound is coming from, allowing yourself to see these thoughts. Notice how words have a tendency to kind of pop up and then they can disappear in the next moment. Or notice that there might be words that have a harder time at disappearing. That's okay. That won't last forever. Again, just like the clouds come and go in the sky, and those clouds have different paces and volumes, our thoughts have different paces and volumes. Again, you're noticing your mind as this storyteller or this commentator, not placing weight or judgment on any of the stories that are being told or the comments that you hear. You're taking a step back as the noticing self and the observing self, remaining curious as you were as a small child. With some of these thoughts, you might notice some uncomfortable emotions. Maybe there's a sense of boredom, impatience, frustration, sadness, or anxiety. We're allowing those feelings to be there as these thoughts come and go. Because emotions are actually really similar to thoughts. They have their own rhythm and pace, and they too come and go, just like the weather and the clouds in the sky. The sky really has a vast space to hold all your thoughts and all your emotions. There may be some days and some moments during the day where you feel really clouded by your thoughts and clouded by your emotions. There's an overcast. It might be hard to see things freely in your environment. hard to sort through the clouds and the fog in the sky. Maybe other days and moments where you see blue skies and less clouds in the sky. And you feel a greater sense of freedom and vastness and openness from the experience. This is part of the human experience. This is part of everything that everyone goes through. We all have an inner voice. We all experience different thoughts, have different anxieties, have different senses of sadness, have different feelings on different days at different times. There may be times where maybe certain clouds or thoughts or emotions seem to linger a little bit longer. And it's hard to really sort through those things and those thoughts. And it can be hard to sort through and see the sky because it's being clouded by all of those thoughts and all of those emotions. That's okay. Emotions often have two functions. The emotions can kind of tell us what we need to hear and teach us something. Or the emotions can also motivate our behavior. And again, just as you would as a small child, remaining in your observing self and your noticing self, not allowing yourself to get hooked by these thoughts or by these emotions. Allowing yourself and your mind to be the storyteller that it is. Letting that story kind of play in the background. Maybe similar to the way you might let music play in the background or the TV play in the background. You can continue to move throughout your day with those stories being played in the background without needing to get hooked and pulled in to that music that you hear or the TV that you hear playing in the background. Your noticing self is really showing up with a sense of openness, curiosity for your experience. Has this non-judgmental attitude. It's not attempting to control anything or to judge you in any way. It's simply noticing that your mind is a storyteller, that your mind has things to say, noticing the words in your head, noticing the location of where those words are coming from, maybe noticing the pace of those words or their speed. Now, when you're ready, as we prepare to end this exercise, bring your awareness back into your body. First, by wiggling your toes, wiggling your fingers, maybe allowing yourself to gently sway in your seat, focusing on your breath as you breathe in and as you breathe out. Noticing what it feels like to breathe in the air into your lungs and exhale the breath into the environment. When it feels right, open your eyes, scanning your environment, taking note of any shapes or colors that you might see there, and noticing that this exercise may have been difficult today or easy today. If it's difficult, that's okay. You're not placing any judgment on how well you feel you did or how well you feel you didn't do. This mindfulness stuff really takes practice. And remember, to practice, you can return to this meditation at any time to help you tap into that noticing self, that curious self, and that observing self.